Hello, my name's Ollie and this is my channel Bookdraw. For those of you who don't know, I enjoy looking at queer fiction and making little images about it. I also do reviews and occasionally talk about places that I've been to. So today I'm doing the wrap-up from the previous month, so I'm looking back at the books that I've read. First of all, I'm starting with Jan Morris's Have, and Have is split into two books. One which was published in 1985, which was Letters of Have, which then got published in 2006 with a supplement of 6 days going back into Have called Have of the Mirrormindens. I think that's how you say it, but I'm not entirely sure. Have is a fictional place, a fictional country, which is kind of somewhere in the eastern Mediterranean. And Jan Morris has gone over and she spends 6 months there exploring it, and she's a travel writer, so she really goes underneath what it's like to live as part of that culture, and she talks to various different interesting people and just kind of soaks up some of the culture and the food, and you get a sense of some of the animals which are actually distinct to the place of Have. She almost uncovers a subculture within Have, and you leave the country and the end of the story, and there's some sort of happening, an event where there's a political dispute happening which you don't really know anything about. And I can imagine at that point in 1985, if you just had that book and that's how it ends and you're left, I would have felt completely deserted and wanting to know exactly what happened. But I think because she's a travel writer, she would have gone into and been parachuted into a lot of different countries where various different things was happening, and never got to find out like a nice concluding end. It would never have happened. She would have just gone on to the next place, it had the next experience. It's really interesting how she passes that on, that experience, to you as a reader, that you're not going to get a cut and dry conclusion to this story. And then when she returns 20 years later for these 6 days, it's a completely different place. So much has happened, so much has changed to the entire identity of Have itself as a country and a place. There's little nods to cultural differences, ways of countries presenting themselves appear to have like been seeped into the storyline itself. They have this event which was called the intervention, and you don't really know exactly what happened during the intervention, but it's clearly had this dramatic change which has basically given the whole place a giant facelift. And there's this tower called the Mirrorminden Tower, which has this giant M, and she says how she doesn't know what the identity of the truth of the identity behind the M is, and she even makes reference to the identity of herself. And I found that really interesting in terms of how she came as a traveller into this fictional place which is completely created, and she's made all these observations about this fictional place, but it's based on all these other experiences that she's had, and she's trying to like reflect that back out to the world. So it's a completely artificial construction in her own mind, and she even references herself as like the M, meaning her, who at the centre of herself. The whole book is an allegory about identity, and it's about the claiming of an identity, the change of identity through time, and how different people can influence and change and modify a sense of identity, a sense of culture, a sense of heritage, and how that can be completely rewritten depending on who's in a position of power. And I was just like, that's amazing, and also really kind of complex and confusing. Then when you combine this with the fact that the author Jan Morris is actually a trans woman in terms of her identity, there's this interesting relationship going on between the book as a construct of identity, of a place, which is about how people, the external person, comes in and views their world, views her person, and how that identity is seen and understood in oneself. It's such a brilliant book, and it's one which I feel like I'm going to have to read again in a few years' time. I hope this is making sense. It feels really ranty, but like by the time I finished the end of the book, I was like, God, this is so good. The next one which I read was Draw the Line, which is by Laurent, Linn, and I read this as part of the Dune Topple challenge, which Adriana from Perpetual Pages set up with some other people. Are in a link below in the description, but I watch her channel. I really love her stuff because she has this sense of authority which just makes you want to go out and get the books that she recommends, and like you just know that whatever she's kind of recommended will be a good read. So the basic principles of the challenge is that a tome is anything over 500 pages, and so I have only really had time for reading one of them, but one of the kind of separate challenges beneath that was also reading a graphic novel, and so I felt like I was slightly incorporating that because this one does have parts which are drawn out like this, and these are all drawn by the actual writer himself, so I really appreciated that part as well. The story actually had everything that I could ever want for in like a YA novel, in the fact that the lead character, Adrian, is a bit of a drifter, a bit of a loner, I suppose, in some ways, but he has two really hardcore friends, Audrey and Trent, who are kind of his support network within the story. He enjoys illustrating and creating his own comic book character called Graphite, who's here on the front cover. He observes a guy who's at his school getting beaten up by another guy for basically being gay. It's a hate crime, and he is dealing with the fact that he saw that and the fact that the school aren't doing anything about it because of who the thug character was, called Doug, and he's got his kind of buddy called Buddy, actually, but so basically it's him trying to work out how he feels about that entire situation. So it's about his journey as an individual to try and step up against this really big bully. But what I really enjoyed about this book is that it wasn't like a direct, this person is bad, this person is wrong. It actually explores Doug's character as well. For me, as a young adult novel, which features a young gay guy who loves a bit of art, it has everything for me. It will probably have a lot of things for other people as well. The character studies on the surrounding characters are great. The storytelling is really fun, and the images inside are a delight as well. So I just really enjoyed this. So the next one is the Two Boys Kissing, which is by David Levithan. This is a beautiful, beautiful story. It was so rich and moving and dramatic, and it had all the feels within it. But it's a YA novel. It flips between several different characters, but it concentrates on these two boys who are trying to attempt the longest recorded kiss in the world, and it's between these two boys, and it's about raising visibility after a friend of theirs got attacked for being gay. This was actually based on real life events which happened between Matty, Daley and Bobby Canciello in 2010. So that's just one element to the rest of the book, which flips between other characters such as Cooper, whose parents find that he's got porn on his laptop, and he's crushed and distraught, and they're not exactly supportive, so he ends up running out of the house. It's also really good at looking at some of the limitations and some of the destructive qualities of online dating and using apps, the way in which the hookups are really shallow and meaningless, and yet he is kind of driven because he wants to kind of obliterate himself and just lose himself, and how that has such a negative impact on him as a person. I thought the narrative is really cleverly described because this story is told through the lens of previous dead gay men. It's just subtly introducing the idea of in the 80s that there was such a global epidemic which was had a really big impact on young gay men in particular who are very sexually active, and they are observers to this next generation. The voices of those people are particularly held within the AIDS epidemic, and so it's really quite emotive and challenging to read. It's all about the visibility, about what those people could have become and what they never had the opportunity to be, and how they were ignored, and how that history is being eroded over time and kind of not looked at. And part of this is about telling that story again, but not in a way which is like being slammed over the head. And there's this other really cute storyline involving Avery and Ryan, who are two young gay men. One's got blue hair, one's got pink hair, and what Avery ends up coming out that he's female to male trans, and it's about how their relationship begins to blossom, but also it's about Ryan kind of losing it really, and they start being bullied. Ryan ends up feeling weak for not responding aggressively, and what he jeopardizes is the new fledgling relationship that the two of them are forming, because he's so caught up and angry in the way that they didn't stand up for themselves. And I can totally understand that frustration and the anger, but what Avery tries to help him do is pull him back to, don't concentrate on that, don't waste your energy on them, concentrate on us, concentrate on what's good between us, and let's make this grow and let's make this good. And then there's Peter and Neil, who are a more established couple. Neil isn't particularly out. I mean, it's known by the family, it's like the family secret. Mrs. Kim, the mum, and it just made me think of Gilmore Girls, Mrs. Kim in that, in terms of this very strict, straight-faced woman who acknowledges, without saying the words, that he is gay and has a relationship with Peter, but it's that taboo thing that it's not said out loud. And the scene is so well put together, the way in which it was narrated by these voices of dead young gay men who hadn't had that opportunity to have that conversation with the mum, or had those experiences where they were rejected by their families, and what the consequences of that was. And it's interesting to see that kind of comparison between then and now, and how those views are shifting and are changing. And that's why I really thought that this was a brilliant piece of writing in terms of showing that progression, but also demonstrating those challenges, and just being a voice and a role model in itself as a book, as a piece of literature, to go, it's okay to feel the way you feel, it's okay to be facing the things you're facing, you are not alone. Yeah, it's just a brilliant educational kind of read, which is good for both children and young people, for adults who kind of been through these things and can reflect on that, but also for parents who have queer or questioning kids who don't know what they're really doing or going through. It's a good kind of like, well, this is what it feels to be like that. And that's why I thought this was ace. And lastly, it's a cheat, because it's not actually a wrap up. I haven't actually finished it. I have finished this though. I'm doing a reread at the moment of Frank Herbert's Dune, and I'm doing it as a buddy read with Booky Lorra, I'll add her channel in the description below. You can see her stuff. She's really cool, she's really friendly. We did our first video recording of us having a Skype conversation about the first book. It was just a really lovely conversation to have with her. She was incredibly patient with me because I was suffering from all sorts of tech problems, and she was just really easygoing and accepting, which I was incredibly grateful for. Later on, we will be doing like a joint book buddy read video together at some point soon as well, which I'm excited about. Anyway, that's everything for my wrap up for this month. I will also be doing a haul sometime soon, and then I will be cracking on with other kind of book reviews. So I will see you again soon. Okay, bye!